Welcome to the thisABILITY Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team Thisability.
Are you ready to push your limits, conquer the unknown, and actually train like an adventure racer?
This episode is sponsored by Nick Hurff, elite athletic coach, seasoned adventure racer, and the go-to expert for building endurance, grit, and next-level performance.
Whether you're training for your first 5K, your next ultra, a multi-day expedition race, or recovering from an injury, like I am, Nick Hurff offers personalized coaching plans that fit your goals, your schedule, and your life. With a deep background in real-world racing and a science-based approach, you'll get more than workouts, you'll get results.
It's not just about finishing. It's about thriving through every challenge. Remote coaching? Yep. Custom plans? Absolutely. Motivation and accountability? That's what he does best.
Check him out at nickhurffcoaching.com and tell him we sent you.
That's NICKHURFF coaching.com.
Hey, race fans. We have a podcast tonight I think you guys will enjoy. Got a couple different things. We all of a sudden are going to France for a race, and so we're going to talk about that. And then all of us, I'm sure all of our audience has been biting their nails wondering how Andrea is doing with her recovery, with her exercise. And so we are super excited to have Nick Hurff once again on the podcast to give us some guidance on how to recover. So before we get into that, let's talk about France for a second. Each year it seems like when you do the C2C race, there's always kind of a giveaway for the top 3-person plus co-ed team in the race. And, you know, one year it was an entry to Expedition Alaska, which was super cool. But this year it was a race in France. What's it called? Sud Race, I think it's called. Sud Raid, right? Happens every year. And it's coming up in August. And so we got this little message from a fella out in like Australia, part of the A1 group, which is kind of an ARWS competitor. And he was like, hey, the top team, which was High Point, can't do the race. So it rolled down to us. And so all of a sudden it was like, holy crap, we've got like a month and a half to throw together a team. And so Nick was able to join. So we're super stoked that he was able to join. And then also Brenda Carlson, who did the race with us at C2C, as well as Mark Miller, who did the race with us at C2C. And Nick and Mark are good buddies from volunteering at Expedition Alaska the last time. So we've got a 4-person team getting ready to get on an airplane to go to France, August something. We haven't figured out the departure date, but either way, super excited. We are bummed that Andrea can't be on the team. She's still recovering. And so that's a little bit of a bummer because without Andrea, I don't know. Is it still thisABILITY? I have no idea. I don't know without her. So either way, so that's the big news coming up. And then also next race is coming up. We got nationals coming up in September in Bentonville, and then back to back, like we literally get on an airplane with enough gear to do 2 races, Bentonville, and then going right into Worlds and then back. And thankfully, the minute Andrea got injured, Nick was able to step up and fill her slot at Worlds. So we're stoked to have him as part of that race as well. And then Sarah Goldman and Mark Bolliard will be our teammates for nationals, and of course Caitlin for Worlds as well. So pretty stoked. And who am I missing? Who's the 4th on Worlds?
David.
David,
yeah.
Gravener, yes. So it's going to be an amazing team. Sorry, I brain farted there for a second. So either way, that's what's coming up with thisABILITY. Keep an eye out for our race rambles and all of our videos and stuff like that. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we're here to talk about. Andrea has gone through this thing where, you know, broken ankle and then surgery and then all these different things. But guess what? This week, the cast came off on Monday. Physical therapy was today. And Nick, being the best, like, personal coach, trainer, professional, has like come to our house for 3 days to hang out and make sure Andrea had the best recovery possible. So, Nick, welcome to the pod. Andrea,
yeah, thanks for having me.
What the heck's going on? Like, how has this week been? Are you feeling liberated that your foot now can breathe?
Well, we should say that Nick is not here just for me, just to go to PT with me. It's nice to have him here, though. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. Um, I mean, yeah, it's a step in the right direction. It's really nice not to have my cast on. It's really nice to be able to sleep without it, but it's still really, really frustrating and sad that I can't walk. I can't do any of the things that I really love to do. I can't drive, and that did not change overnight. So, yeah, there's going to be a 2 week time period about where I'll be transitioning to full weight bearing and um, and then hopefully in a couple of weeks driving, and then maybe in 3 weeks I might be able to get a real shoe on my foot. So right now I've got the medical boot kind of thing is enormous, but it is nice to be able to take it off. And yeah, I mean that's where we're at.
So when we first did the podcast right after the injury, right? I think you were getting ready to go into surgery. You still had a broken foot, I think, when we did the podcast.
Yeah.
We were all kind of under the impression we were worried about the pain. We were worried about the surgery pain, but just based on my experience, the hardest part about this is not the injury itself. And I don't know if you want to dive deeper on that, just so that to help people who all of us do crazy stuff. Some of us do crazy stuff all around the world in these expedition races. You got hurt in the backyard effectively, but
Yeah.
it's been expensive and it's been depressing and you're a fiercely independent person and relying on somebody else has been hard. So let's unpack all of that before we get into all the beautiful stuff of this week begins your recovery. Let's talk about the positives. Like, if you don't mind, let's get into the negatives a little bit so people that are in the same situation can understand what they're up against.
Yeah, I mean it sucks. I mean, definitely the mental part of it has been way harder than the physical part of it. So, yeah, there's been some pain, but nothing that,
Ooh,
Tylenol doesn't take away. And I haven't taken Tylenol for, I don't know, a few weeks now, even though I've been uncomfortable. And there's this sensation of like pins and needles. I guess it's kind of like nerve pain. So I've got like strange sensations. And physically, like all day long, I can be just fine. Nothing bothers me. And then I lay down to go to bed and my mind's not busy. And so I'm just laying there thinking, oh, my foot is kind of buzzing. It's like got these pins and needles. And it's like, it doesn't hurt. It's just like, it's wide awake and having kind of a party down there. And I'm like, I'd like to go to sleep now. So the whole annoyance is that. And also, if I haven't had my foot, it's just been really surprising to me how much I've had to have it elevated. Like, not having ever broken my leg before, like I didn't really give it much thought that you actually have to have it elevated. I thought that might be like the first week or something, and then I'll just be, on crutches, big whoop. But the worst part is I've been sitting and I've been having to have my leg, that's I'm not going to lay down all day long. So I've been doing my best with elevating my leg, but just being sedentary and being homebound and not being able to do much for myself. Like I am just going so crazy being on other people's schedules. It's like I'm at the mercy of whenever Chip's home or my daughter's home to take me places or um, I don't know. It's surprising how disruptive to my mental state that is, that I can't just go exercise. Even going to Planet Fitness, I can't go whenever I want to. I can't stick to Nick's plan all the time because I don't have someone to take me there. And then I have to go when I do have somebody. And even then, it's a pain in the butt for them, and it might not be their preference. So, that sucks. And there's that feeling like the world just goes on without you. So that's rough.
and also I think something that stuck out to me was you kind of think once you're in a cast or whatever, it's going to kind of settle down. But you were in the situation where you really needed to keep your foot elevated. And the minute your foot was like below your heart, or let's say below your waist, your toes are turning purple. And so you want to help with dinner. You want to eat at the kitchen table. You want to go to a restaurant. But our entire life for whatever, 6 weeks was like everywhere we go, you had to have your foot elevated. You can't ride in the passenger seat of the car. You had to be in the back of the minivan. So you're kind of on the couch. When you go to a restaurant, you had to have the little kneely thing where you could prop your foot up. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. I was thinking like
Yeah.
just a little bit after the injury, you get a cast, and then like, I mean, I get it. You need to have it elevated for a bit, but I was really surprised to see how it really, I mean, you really couldn't have your foot down for more than just a few minutes.
Yeah, and that meant that we couldn't take our trip to Colorado. So originally I thought, oh, of course we'll still go. The doctor said I could go. He prescribed a blood thinner for the airplane ride. And, as it got closer and closer, it just became more evident that even if I could get there, it wouldn't be a very great experience. So we ditched that trip, which means, of course, you ditched your trip. And, there were some races smaller races that we were going to do over the summer that we couldn't do, but you were still going to do. But then we had to cancel that trip. And so then all of your races were cut off the table too. So yeah, that sucked. I haven't seen my mom for too long. Anyway, so I was excited to go back home to Colorado and I didn't get to do that. But um, yeah, it's I don't know how else to say that it just really sucks. And I
This
hope
sucks.
no one has to go through it. And even me, like, I just feel like I'm a mentally tough person. And I've been through things in my life. I've had this feeling before where everyone else's life goes on while yours has changed drastically. And it's a really lonely feeling. So, yeah, I know there's an end of the tunnel, a light at the end of the tunnel, which of course makes it easier, but it still feels really far away. Like even knowing in 2 weeks I'm going to probably be able to walk, um, in the next 6 months, I'm missing out on two huge races and nationals, three really big races. Um, of course, it's hard to have too much of a pity party because I'm really grateful for all of the experiences I've already had in my life. Like we have done a lot of racing. And, I'm just really thankful. Even this year, we went to New Zealand and Morocco. We had two huge races. So I'm trying to, focus on what I've already been able to accomplish and kind of do more reflecting. But again, like I'm having to do that by myself primarily because, Chip's getting ready for France and I need to be happy for him. So I will be. I think, the team's going to be really great. And it's certainly something I would do if I were him too. We share, we've never done an international race without each other. So it's kind of the first big one that we won't have that shared experience. Um, but that's okay. So anyway, 6 months. We're hoping to get to New Zealand. That's my goal race.
Yep.
So all of these little goals in between are hopefully going to get me there. And maybe that will take us up to talking about happier things.
Okay, so before we go on to the future, one more thing on the past. Because I know Nick, you're a big part of this, but what are the
Yeah.
happy points? What are the things you did during your recovery to date that were actually fun? And what are the things that you did to keep yourself as physically fit as possible, given the fact that you got this foot that you can't bring below your waist for very long?
So, yeah, Nick has been quite a help. His training program has been really nice. I've got at least a framework of what things I can do. And like I said, I've had to switch around days and, I haven't been exactly to the book, but I've done way more than I probably would have without his advice. The advice that he gave me about keeping up with my other body parts, I've been
Yeah.
trying. Um, so
Yeah. So to
yeah, go ahead, Nick.
yeah, so to put in perspective, like for her right leg from the knee down, there's not much we can do, right? But we did a lot with, even on the broken leg side, a lot with her quads, a lot with her hamstrings, a lot with her glutes, her glute med. So imagine her laying on the ground on her side and she's doing sideways leg lifts and, doing curls and all different stuff using those other muscles. So, even today at PT, we were looking at it and like her quads on both sides are the same, right? And so, yeah, they are.
No, they're not. But there's
They
less
are.
difference
Yeah.
than my calves. My calves are markedly different. My quads are noticeable to me.
Yeah, well, according to the PT and I both, they're not noticeable. So to everybody else. But yeah, and then we did a lot on her good leg, right? So she can do things like, one-legged squats. She can do air squats, kind of assisted pistol squats, doing squats in the chair. And then again, doing a lot of that glute med work, the adductor, abductors, laying in the prone on the ground on the yoga mat, doing different glute exercises, bridges, all those things. And then you layer on like the ab stuff. She can do 6 inches. She can do different, pretty much almost every core exercise she can do, right? So we can keep a good core. We can keep the leg strong on both sides for the most part, and at least mitigate the loss of strength significantly, but maintain a fair amount. And then the whole upper body, we've just been doing a lot of upper body. And so when you kind of layer all that on, in paddling, you were paddling like twice this week, right?
So yeah, here's the thing that I feel like I haven't been able to figure out. That's the cardio. Like I've been keeping up with what I can do with weights and upper body stuff at the gym at Planet Fitness, my new favorite place that I love to hate to love. Anyway, lots of upper body stuff, but the cardio. So I've been doing the arm bike at Planet Fitness. So boring. So boring. And force myself enough of a response. My heart rate doesn't really get that high. And to get it higher, I can't make myself do it. And so paddling is another thing that I've been trying to do a lot of as often as Chip can take me. Um, and that's been pretty often. And that's another thing where, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm getting some cardio, but I'm not getting that feeling of when you have to make it up a hill on a bike. Like when your heart's like really pumping and you're working really hard and you can feel it. I haven't had that feeling for quite a while. The other thing that comes close with cardio is the Supernatural app on the Oculus. And I really have to recommend it. It's fun even if you don't have an injury, because it's
Can you
like,
describe what that is?
yeah. So the Oculus is a headset. It's by Meta, the Facebook makers, but it's like a goggles that you wear. It's kind of heavy, so you kind of have to get used to how it feels on your head. And you're seeing like a 3D world inside the headset. And this app, you can either choose if you're going to have and you have two controllers in your hands, and you choose whether they're going to be boxing gloves or whether they're going to be bats. And so then you go inside this 3D 360 photo of a beautiful place. The photos are always really beautiful. And you can look around everywhere. It feels like you're there kind of. And then you pick your music and these balls come at you and you have to strike the balls with bats. Or if you're doing a boxing one, it shows you like you have to hit the balls. And it's surprising you can really get your heart rate up that way. I think that's been my best cardio. Um, and it's fun, so it's not so much like the bike at the hand bike at the gym. Um, yeah, and of course there's points, and you can do it with people anyway. And you can set it so usually you're supposed to do it standing up, and you kind of move around the circle that you're in to hit the things. But you can make the settings so that it's done while sitting in a chair, and so it's all coming at you while you're sitting. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's been a struggle. And but like Nick said, he joined me at my PT appointment today, and I think it served me well doing what Nick has prescribed for me to do, and I will never think some things are fun, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but you're finding like you're using the Oculus, right? You're getting your heart rate up and you're doing it. So when you look at endurance, right? When you look at it from like a metabolic side, right? There's really two areas. You got your core and then your, we'll call it the periphery. And so the periphery is like the local muscles. So inside the muscles you're using, you have your mitochondria that produce the energy. You can train those muscle fibers and all the enzymes that are in there and all that stuff through repetitions. You can make the muscle fiber stronger in the tendons and all that part. But a lot of that's local adaptations you're getting, right? Meaning that if I do a bunch of, upper body thing, it's not going to translate to the muscle mitochondria as much in the legs, right? There's a tiny bit of hormonal overlap you might get, but overall they're separate. However, the core aspect is where it's regardless. So that's really your heart, lungs, and blood, right? Your hematocrit. And so stimulating it, you're literally keeping like the core aspect of it. So your heart, your lungs, and your blood stimulating. So red blood cell production, if there's an EPO response, whatever you're getting naturally happening through those processes, your hemoglobin levels, all those were stimulating and keeping up, right? And then additionally, your upper body, you're getting local endurance. So like your paddling will be stronger at a race after this, right? And so with that, then we're looking at, well, what can we do? We can obviously do strength on the upper body, which we're doing. We can make your core really strong. And then the lower body, we can keep your one leg really strong, and we can keep the other one, the muscles that we can hit them not with a lot of weight, but reps, right? And so when you look at it, like how many people will break a leg or a bone or whatever, and then they're just going to sit on the couch for 2 months because they have to wait for the surgery, like you did the surgery. Now you just got the cast off, and now they're like starting at zero, right? So instead of zero, we went, you're at 100%, and then they start dropping down over 8 weeks. You're going to lose a lot. Your drop is much more gradual. So instead of being way down here, you're going to be kind of more like up here. And so now when you're looking at progressing back to racing, while we're doing physical therapy and we're slowly integrating, more weight bearing on your leg and all those protocols that they're really taking that lead on, you're going to be able to do more and more, but you're also coming up from a much higher level because you're relatively active. And for somebody with a broken leg, you're very active from where you were. And so like, even though it's not where you want to be, it's significantly better than where you otherwise would have been. And now your trajectory coming back is much more enhanced. So
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, but I've also done a lot of sitting around, like a lot. So I still feel like there's a pretty significant hill I've got to climb back up to get to where I was. And I won't even know how much I really lost until I can even walk. Like, so like I said, it'll be about 2 weeks till I transition to more weight bearing. And so far, like my only exercises that the PT gave me are basically range of motion and just stimulating the muscles that, need to wake up. So, and I know, Nick, maybe you should explain like what's happening with my foot and why is it taking so long to do something that I've done my whole life, my whole long life. I've known how to walk, and all of a sudden my foot's like, what? I don't know how to do this, and I've got to
yeah.
retrain it. So why is that happening?
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, you haven't used it in 8 weeks. So
But it's
the
only 8 weeks.
nervous system. Yeah. So the nervous system just needs to wake back up. Right. And so the nervous system, there's a lot of things with the nervous system, right? So with the somatic side, with this side, you shoot an electrical impulse, your brain tells you to move your finger, and everything connects to move it, right? If you look at the analogy I love to use is you look at a little kid who's learning to throw a baseball and it's super weird and awkward. And then all of a sudden, like 3 days later, after he's thrown like 100 things, he's all of a sudden like whipping the ball into the window at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. Over 3 days, he just did a ton of reps. And so once you build those connections, they go and go and go and get refined better. And so for you, you just literally haven't fired those connections in a while. And so it's got to kind of wake up. And then the other part is, you still got the inflammation, you just have the bone thing in, like the body's a little different than it was as well. And so it's got to rewire those, right? So if you look at like a stroke, victim post-stroke, right? Physical therapists will work with stroke victims a lot. And I'm not a physical therapist, so but that's a big neurological piece. And so they're literally reworking how to wire the brain and the whole nervous system to fire again, right? So yours is like, you're not having any issues in the brain or anything like that with the CNS, but at that local nervous system, it is a little different now that there's been that significant damage and it's waking up. And so the same thing is if you're an athlete and you're running, right, and you haven't ran in a while, like that nervous system needs to wake up a little bit. So you do something like some stride outs, which are like, you just kind of like a sprint, but not quite a sprint. You go at the fastest you can, maintaining proper running form. But you do something like, 4 by 10 seconds of those with like a 2-3 minute break in between, just in the middle of your slow run. Your heart rate's not going to spike, but all of a sudden after that, you feel a little more pop, right? And it's because your nervous system kind of woke back up and it's firing the muscles better. So that's even like you come off a rest day and you start running, you might even feel a little sluggish, but then you throw a couple in and all of a sudden now it's firing better. That's part of it, right? And so it's just waking up the nervous system and getting it starting to go again. And you still have a lot of inflammation, all that stuff that needs to work through too. So like, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess they were also kind of saying, everything's been traumatized. Your muscles, your tendons, your bones, your nerves, even your veins in your feet, like all of it's very red. It's like not the same color as my other foot. It's like the veins need to start working properly again too. And it's kind of fascinating too to think what your body is doing and what it's been through. And I have now a plate and is it 7 or 8 screws? Anyway, I'm pretty. I mean, I did a number on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part's kind of fascinating. And yeah, I mean, I just have to trust that what everyone's telling me is going to play out. It's that's what's positive. I mean, I was active before. I've been fairly active while I've been down. I'm really glad that I didn't have this injury like when I was new to mountain biking, because I'm also kind of hoping that once I get on the bike, I'm not going to be afraid very long, hopefully. Like, I think if I'd had an injury like this when I just started learning, it might set me back farther. I mean, I've been biking now for, I guess, 13 years, mountain biking.
Yeah.
About that, something like that. So I'm really hoping that all of the time I've done these things I want to be doing comes back. Because if there's anything else that I'm worried about, it's probably about being afraid. Like right now, I'm afraid to freaking put more than 25% of my body weight on my leg in this boot because I'm not supposed to do more than 25%. Like, how do you know what 25% of your body weight feels like? Anyway, it's all a little bit of a guessing game. So
yeah, it doesn't really matter if you're at 20 or 35, like you're in the ballpark.
I know,
right?
but it's just the thought that I'm afraid to do that. So
yeah,
it's really daunting to think I'm going to go hop on my bike and go the trails that I have ridden with no problem in the past. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And and two things with that. One is that endurance is you build endurance over years, right? And so just because you're out for, we'll say 3 months before we're doing significant biking, because you're going to be starting biking next week with like 10 minutes on a stationary, right?
Yeah.
And then it's going to quickly go from 10 to 15 to 20 to 40 to an hour, et cetera. And then, a couple weeks in, so at the 3 month mark, we're probably doing intervals on a stationary bike, right? And once we're there, we're back, right? And then you're walking again. So then all of a sudden there, the training is completely different. And at that point, we're also pretty close to where, talking with the physical therapist, her and I were brainstorming. One, we were kind of going over her history and the training she's done prior and what she does. We went over a lot of talks on the things we've been doing with her to keep her as fit as we can, avoiding the injured area. Talking through a lot of the injury prevention stuff we've done in the past and different things. So she's got a really good idea of kind of what she's working with Andrea. And then we talked through what's called return to play protocol. So her and I worked through kind of what the general trend is, what the plan is. We worked through how to start integrating things back in. And her and I then were going over different ideas, because I've done this for dozens and dozens and dozens of athletes, especially with the NCAA athletes get hurt all the time. And there's just so many of them. Like I've done this a lot. And so even little things like, okay, once she's able to step and walk around, well, now we can probably do body weight air squats on it slow, right? Or even before that, we can have her holding on to like a TRX band or a rope, so that way she can then control the weight on that leg. So she's not putting all the weight, but maybe she has 75% weight on. And now we can do a bunch of reps. And all of a sudden we're getting a lower body workout, whereas your average person might be barely walking at that point, or starting, midway through recovery of walking. And meanwhile, we're getting a lower body work in. And so, with that said, we have some ways that we're going to get you back training quicker. And the other part, though, just to go back, it's built over years. And so even though you're out 3 months of not really doing lower body training, you're doing everything you can. And we're maintaining as much strength as we can. And we're making it to where you're going to come back quick. And a big part of the metabolic side is like a lot of things that happen in adaptations, like you create more muscle fibers in certain ways. You create more mitochondria, which kind of produce the energy. You've grown new and extra capillaries all around to bring blood to those muscles more. You've built this hemoglobin level. We looked at your blood work, right? So I reviewed Andrea's blood work. I do that with almost all my athletes. Yeah. As long as they have it, we look it over, and whenever they get retested, we take a look, and her hemoglobin levels are really good. They're well above average, which is what we would expect for endurance athlete for many, many years. And so all those adaptations are great, and those are going to come back quick. What we're going to see is, it's going to start like, oh my God, what is this? But then within a couple sessions, all of a sudden, imagine like all those things I said, the mitochondria that she's built, those fibers, the capillaries and all, those are like hardware, and all the enzymes and metabolic processes and the enzymatic things that happen there that make all the chemical reactions happen. All that's like the software. And so the software has kind of been shut down in that area and in some areas. And once you fire up that software again, the computer is running again pretty quick. And so that's kind of where we're at, is like we're holding what we got, maintaining what we got, trying to get her jacked on the upper body. And then we're making it to where we're training as much as we can, safely as soon as we can, within the protocols that we have and approval that we get. There's a mix of approvals from the orthopedic surgeon and the physical therapist, et cetera. So everybody kind of plays in what's available. But the PT and I had a good talk as well, because we're like, as I specifically said, for Andrea, if you tell her she's cleared to bike, like she might go do a 2-hour bike. So like make sure that you put stipulations on like how much can we bike. She's like, oh yeah, we're going to start with like 10 minutes and we'll see how that feels the next day. And so it's like, that's another part of that return to play protocol, is like there's conversations that happen where you kind of frame who the person is and build that so that way it gets all the parties see from different angles that are involved and work together to come up with the plan for the athlete or Andrea to come back as effectively as possible. So, yeah.
We were talking about it earlier today. We basically have two problems to solve. One is range of motion and getting the tendons and all of the stuff, stretched out. And then the other thing is like the actual fitness and the load. So can you talk through your strategy on how, or the PT? I know there's some exercises they recommended, but the two different things, how do we increase load to get back to fitness, and how do we increase flexibility? And do you do that at the same time? Do you stack it? Like how do those two things play together?
Yeah, so those are all really more physical therapist lines of how they want to do all the strategy on it. In general, the range of motion is just how the joint can move, right? And that's also different than mobility. So like passively moving is different than actively moving. So like if someone lays on the ground, I move their hamstring, I can get a certain range of motion. But now if I have them actually lunge and do that under load where they're having to push with their muscles in and out, it might be different, right? So the range of motion, I mean, already Andrea is doing different things with towels and actually pulling it in different directions. So those tendons are like rubber bands, and the tendons have tightened up a lot. And so they need to kind of stretch back out slowly. And so it's going to take some time to stretch them back out where they need to be. And the tendons are attached to bone and attached to the muscle. So as the muscle strengthens, and moves, it's going to help as it moves and gets used to kind of loosen that up and get that moving again as well. And then, if the muscle's super tight, it might pull the tendon. But in general, as you get everything moving again, it's going to start to loosen back up. The other parts, there's a lot of inflammation still at different times, especially when she's been on it for a while or later in the day. And so those aspects, can impact some of that range of motion too. But really just trying to get it to where she's able to naturally move back to where she was to the best of the ability. And right now her range of motion is pretty good. So you can see a difference in the two legs, significant, but she's able to move it quite a bit. Like, I don't remember the degrees, but she's able to move it a fair amount too. And so it's really kind of working that piece over time of just getting it back to where it is flexibility wise, right? Range of motion. And then as far as the strategies of everything, that's out of my lane, right? I can talk about non-injured athletes and how we can do some of that. But then when we go to the strength piece, what you have to think is, the bone is active, live organ tissue, right? Like it's actually living. And so when you stimulate it with load, the bone is going to actually, start to, you have osteoblasts that form, and they're actually going to start to, make the bone thicker and more dense. So you take an athlete and put them under load with barbells and things like that and get them squatting and whatnot, you're going to see increases in bone mineral density. You take elderly patients with osteopenia and osteoporosis, you put them under load, you're going to see the bone mineral density actually get better and start to kind of reverse a little bit on those, right? Done safely. So with where she's at, we're talking about healing the bone, which the bone has been there, but those bones and tendons and all that support a lot of that force and impact and weight, but that force that's put on it, by putting slowly a little bit on, it stresses it, and then you back it off and it heals and it starts that process. Then you do a little more, and then it's going to heal that process and grow stronger, and then a little more and heal stronger. Whereas if you do too much at once, it's going to break, right? Or it might just break too much and it's going to take longer to actually get back, right? So think of like, it's like micro damage to it, and then it heals and grows stronger. And that's really what you see. Like I would be, I would be fairly certain that if you take a lot of expedition racers and you were to actually like examine their, like their lower body bones, you're going to end up seeing in the lower leg, like tons of stress fractures, I'm pretty sure, after races and all, right. And that's because there's this huge load that goes in. But the same thing, the more you run, you're actually causing that stimulation of that bone, and it's making the bone stronger too from running, lifting, all those things. So you slowly progress up. But if not, you see things like stress fractures, stuff like that, because you've gone way too much too soon.
Oh, like the person that they run a 5K here and there, and then they go to a venture race and they're trying to go for 24 hours, and it like their bones just have not been built up to the
exactly
duration, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you might get a stress fracture or something, or even just small, tiny fractures that like you won't even go for, but it hurts a little, and then within a week it's healed. Like all that happens, right? And so those are just kind of examples of like over time that bone is active, and so it's like, oh, the bone's healed. Like the bone's healed, but the bone can get a lot stronger. So the bones, even good healed bones, there's a variety of how strong, how dense are these bones that you're using. So, yeah. And good nutrition helps with all that as well.
Okay, so we only got
I can't remember when they said the bone is 100% healed.
It said 2 weeks.
No, it's not there yet. Even now with my cast off, the bone has more weeks to go before it's 100%. Do you remember? I think she said that today, Nick.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah.
But it's not there yet, and that's because it needs to be, like Nick said, it needs to be stressed. I need to be able to put weight on it, and it's going to make it go that extra 100%. And I think going to be the challenge too is trying to figure out how far I can push it and still be within the safe zone, because I have a high tolerance for pain and I want to get better as soon as possible. So Yeah, I even asked, I've got these exercises now I have to do 2 times a day. I'm like, well, what if I do them 3 times a day? And she's like, well, you probably shouldn't do that. I'm like, well, what
Yeah.
would happen if I did? It's like, well, you'll just know that, the next day you'll feel more pain and it could feel throbby or aching, and you'll just realize you overdid it. So
Yeah.
anyway, I
And
need to listen to my body and also stick with what they tell me to do.
yeah. And another piece too is, so we talk about kind of that range of motion stuff they're going to work through, and we talk through kind of the bone building up. But the other part's like the muscles that are around, right? So those muscles, you generally kind of need some kind of stress in order to have that for the muscles, which is different than the stress on the bone. It could be the same if you're running, right? But she was talking about, so a very popular method is using, for an injured athlete like this, is using BFR, so blood flow restriction. So what that
Oh,
is
yeah.
just take you take like
It's
a,
weird. I'd never heard of that before. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's super neat. So what you do is you essentially take a blood pressure cuff, right? But like a big one that's specific for this, and you put it on and you cut off the circulation to that muscle. And so, like, let's say for the wrist, you would do all these wrist kind of exercises and finger exercises and work those muscles around, right? When it doesn't have the oxygen there, it burns through and goes anaerobic super quick, which causes this whole metabolic process. Sometimes it's mTOR, but it goes through this whole process. And what you'll get is you'll get a byproduct of more stress on the muscle to come back, but you also get growth hormone and IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1, which is another anabolic hormone naturally produced by the body, both of them, that respond and help to grow those muscles and repair and stronger. And sometimes those growth factors can help with some of the healing of other injured areas as well. So like it's a method that's able to, with almost no load or significantly little load, able to have a big metabolic reaction and endocrine reaction in that localized area, which is super cool. So that's kind of just a method that's really used a lot in sports medicine. But, for example, talking with the PT brought up that protocol or using those protocols. And, comment as well if I completely butchered that for any of the physical therapists. That's my understanding of all of it. And I think it's pretty good, but yeah.
Which is a better understanding than I have.
Yeah.
Even now,
Yeah.
I'm like, I wonder how that's going to actually play out. But I'm excited to give that a try.
You're going to get that burning sensation like in your legs when you're going uphill for a long time. That's
Good. I need
that
that.
anaerobic kind of side. Yeah.
All right. So
We're,
we got like
go
the
ahead.
last 5 minutes, so we need to wind this up. So what's the plan moving forward? Like when it comes down to how soon are you walking? How soon are you biking? How soon are you trail running? Like, do you have any idea on how that's going to look? Planet Fitness, what kind of things are you looking at adding into your routine there? And yeah, so what's the
Well,
what's the optimistic future?
some of that is kind of like a we'll see. Like some of it's, you know, we can expect that I'll be fully weight bearing in 2 weeks. She said I can get on the exercise bike with the boot on at the physical therapy office next week, but actually being on a real bike, it might depend. And I guess in 3 weeks is when I'll be transitioning to a shoe. Um, so yeah, I think a lot of that is just a we'll see.
Yeah. My guess would be that, next week start at 10 minutes on the bike and that'll slowly progress. And I think a month from now, we'll be at the point where you've been weight bearing for a week with the shoe, 2 weeks weight bearing, one with the cast, one with the shoe. And I think at that point, you're going to be biking, pretty much not like, I wouldn't say mountain biking where you're going to be bouncing a lot and like on hills, but stationary bike or on like a greenway or something. I think you're going to be out there for an hour and slowly and building up from an hour to 2 hours within the following 2 weeks, and it'll be something where my guess is it'll be something where, it's, you're going to be training again, really. It'll be light training. We may not be doing intervals and anything we're pushing super hard, but now we're getting some base work in, some base work, and it'll be something where maybe it's twice a week or something like that. And so it's really
Really,
taking it as it comes.
I'm just excited to go take a walk on a trail outside. I'm
Yeah.
really
By
excited
yourself
for that.
that you drove
I
to.
wouldn't mind going by myself,
Yeah.
that's for dang sure. All this togetherness is like a bit much. Everyone around me probably thinks that too. Anyway, the
Oh,
little things that I
that's-
can't wait for.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys. This is a good talk. And I think anybody that's either dealing with an injury or, I mean, all of us could get injured. This has been really helpful. And Nick, your knowledge in this has been super helpful just so that we understand the underlying biology of what's actually happening with the body and how to get through this. And I wish we had a whole another podcast to talk through nutrition.
I wish we had Jesse Spangler on here. He could talk through some of this a lot more, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, I should have said this already, but I do feel like another thing that I'm really leaning on and will be leaning on in the future is I've just had a lot of help. Nick's been here and Chip's been here, and I have people supporting me and cheering me on. So thanks, everybody.
You're welcome. Cool.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for the talk. And that's a wrap. See you guys next time. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment. To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for thisABILITY Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.